Imagine a world dramatically altered by the outcome of the Great War, a world where the German Empire emerged victorious, reshaping the course of history. The streets of Berlin are filled with jubilant crowds, and the map of Europe is redrawn under the shadow of the Kaiser. The hopes and fears of millions are rewritten overnight, as the balance of power shifts in ways no one could have predicted. In this alternate reality, Winston Churchill, once a rising star in British politics, finds himself exiled to the quiet streets of Canada. Stripped of his titles and influence, he is forced to reinvent himself far from the halls of power. With little left but his memories and his pen, Churchill turns to writing, channeling his frustration and longing for his homeland into the world of fiction. Isolated but undeterred, Churchill pours his energy into a series of novels. His first major work, World Crisis, is a sweeping epic that imagines a world where Britain and its allies emerge triumphant. Through vivid prose and intricate detail, he reconstructs the war as he wished it had been, offering readers a glimpse of a lost future, one where hope and heroism prevail. But it is his most controversial novel, Our Finest Hour, that truly captures the imagination and the ire of his contemporaries. In its pages, Churchill dares to suggest that even an Entente victory would not guarantee peace. Instead, he paints a haunting picture of a world destabilized by triumph, where new dangers lurk in the shadows. This imagined timeline, which he calls Führerreich, explores the unintended consequences of victory and the fragile nature of peace. Churchill's stories are more than just tales of glory. They are warnings. He explores the darkness that can follow even the brightest moments in history, reminding readers that victory often comes at a terrible cost. Through his writing, he questions whether the end of one conflict might simply sow the seeds for the next. In his alternate history, the crushing defeat of the Central Powers creates a dangerous power vacuum. Borders shift, old empires crumble, and new rivalries emerge from the ashes. Churchill's narrative is filled with unrest and uncertainty, as the world struggles to find stability in the aftermath of a war that was supposed to end all wars. Many in the victorious German world scoff at Churchill's novels, dismissing them as nothing more than the bitter fantasies of a defeated man. They cannot imagine a world in which Germany is anything but triumphant, nor do they see the warning in Churchill's words about the dangers of unchecked power and the rise of radical leaders. Yet, beneath the surface of his stories, Churchill's message is clear. Even in moments of triumph, the spectres of war and tyranny are never far away. His novels serve as a cautionary tale, urging readers to remain vigilant and to remember that history's darkest chapters can return when least expected. So, let us step into Churchill's imagined world, a world where Entente victory is not the end, but the beginning of a new and more terrifying chapter. Through his fiction, Churchill invites us to question the true cost of victory and to consider the fragile line between peace and chaos. Churchill's alternate history pivots dramatically on the outcome of the 1912 US presidential election. In this timeline, Theodore Roosevelt, running as the Progressive Party candidate, manages to galvanize the American public and secure a stunning victory. His charisma, bold rhetoric, and reputation as a reformer inspire a new sense of national purpose. Roosevelt's win signals a sharp departure from the cautious policies proposed by his competitor, Woodrow Wilson, setting the stage for a more assertive American role on the world stage. Unlike Wilson, who favored neutrality and restraint, Roosevelt is an unapologetic interventionist. He views the escalating conflict in Europe not as a distant quarrel, but as a direct challenge to American ideals and interests. Roosevelt believes that the United States has a moral obligation to defend democracy and uphold international order, and he is determined to make America's voice heard on the global stage. When the Great War erupts in 1914, Roosevelt's administration wastes no time. America throws its economic and industrial might behind the Entente, sending vast shipments of food, weapons, and medical supplies across the Atlantic. The government launches a sweeping propaganda campaign framing the conflict as a fight for civilization itself. Newspapers, posters, and public speeches rally support for the Allied cause, priming the nation for the possibility of war. By 1917, as the Russian Empire teeters on the brink of collapse and the Central Powers gain ground, Roosevelt makes a decisive move. He addresses Congress with fiery conviction, arguing that American intervention is not only a strategic necessity, but a moral imperative. The nation, he insists, cannot stand idly by while autocracy threatens to engulf Europe. Years of pro-Entente sentiment and relentless advocacy have prepared the American public for this moment. War bond rallies sweep the country, and patriotic fervor surges as citizens from all walks of life unite behind the war effort. The press, politicians, and community leaders echo Roosevelt's call, transforming public opinion into a powerful force for action. The U.S. military, having undergone rapid modernization and expansion under Roosevelt's leadership, is now ready for deployment. Troops are trained, equipped, and eager to prove themselves on the world stage. In a massive mobilization effort, American soldiers board ships bound for Europe, their resolve hardened by months of preparation and national unity. By 1918, waves of American soldiers flood the Western Front. Their arrival brings fresh energy and resources to the exhausted Allied armies. The sheer scale of American involvement tips the balance of power, giving the Allies a decisive advantage in the brutal trench warfare that has ground on for years. The German spring offensive, once seen as Berlin's last hope, is met with overwhelming resistance. Allied artillery thunders, and American troops hold the line. The combined might of the Allies and America becomes an unstoppable tidal wave, sweeping the German Empire toward inevitable collapse and reshaping the course of history. The arrival of overwhelming American forces in 1918 shatters the stalemate and German hopes. The Entente, now unstoppable, pushes deep into Germany itself. No armistice, only total defeat. German cities fall, the Kaiser abdicates, and the empire collapses in chaos. The peace terms are brutal. France occupies the Rhineland, Germany is dismembered, and humiliation is daily reality. The Austro-Hungarian and Ottoman empires are also dismantled, their lands carved into unstable new states. The Central Powers are not just defeated, they're erased. But this crushing victory breeds only resentment, not peace. In the ruins, a new, more dangerous nationalism begins to take root. The Allies impose the Weimar Republic on a broken Germany, but it's seen as a puppet regime. The economy collapses under reparations and hyperinflation, fueling desperation and rage. Political violence erupts. Communists and nationalists battle in the streets, while the government relies on right-wing militias to survive. The Rhineland's occupation is a daily humiliation, deepening nationalist anger. The Republic is despised from all sides, its authority crumbling. Amidst poverty and chaos, radical ideologies flourish. Germans yearn for a savior to restore order and pride. Out of this turmoil, a new leader emerges, promising rebirth through strength. The stage is set for a terrifying transformation. In the chaos, Adam Dressler, a wounded veteran, channels public rage into a new far-right movement, the Völkist German People's Party. His charisma and message of vengeance attract veterans, workers, and the ruined middle class. The Völkists adopt the Völkner, invoking a mythic Germanic past, and form the Storm Corps to battle rivals in the streets. As the Weimar government collapses under economic depression, Dressler seizes his moment. With military and police support, the Völkists stage a coup, meeting little resistance. Dressler proclaims the end of the Republic and the birth of a new Reich. He becomes Führer, promising to tear up the peace treaty and restore Germany's power. The world watches as Germany falls under Dressler's spell. Dressler's Völkism fuses ultranationalism, militarism, and pagan mysticism. He rejects democracy and Christianity, promoting a revival of ancient Germanic beliefs as a new civil religion. The Valknut becomes a symbol of strength and sacrifice, replacing old values with a brutal warrior code. Paradoxically, Völkism allows certain social liberties, masking its brutality with a modern veneer. Dressler's goals are clear: rearm Germany, unite all Germanic peoples, and destroy France. Austria and German-speaking regions are first targets. France is the ultimate enemy. Völkism's mix of myth and modernity makes it uniquely dangerous. Germany prepares for conquest, driven by vengeance and a vision of national rebirth. The Entente's unity dissolves after victory. America retreats into isolation. Britain focuses on its empire. With the US gone, France stands alone as Europe's guardian. Obsessed with keeping Germany weak, Britain grows wary of French ambitions, prioritizing its own colonial interests. Italy, unstable and dissatisfied, is a weak ally, plagued by unrest and feeling cheated by the peace. France maintains alliances in Eastern Europe, but is overstretched and isolated. The Grand Alliance fractures, each nation pursuing its own interests. As Dressler's Germany rearms, France grows increasingly alarmed. The victors, blind to the new threat, drift apart. The seeds of future disaster are sown in their disunity. The Entente's half-hearted intervention lets the Bolsheviks win Russia's civil war. Lenin survives, leading the Soviet Union through brutal modernization and rapid industrialization. By the 1930s, the USSR is a military giant, looming over Eastern Europe. New buffer states like Poland are trapped between a revanchist Germany and a hostile Soviet Union. France's allies in the East are vulnerable, caught between two totalitarian powers. Dressler exploits fear of communism to justify rearmament and expansion. The Soviet Union, meanwhile, eyes the same lands for its own ambitions. Europe faces a two-front threat, one red, one black, both hungry for conquest. By 1936, Churchill's imagined world teeters on the edge of another cataclysm. The scars of the last great conflict are still fresh, yet the warning signs of a new disaster are everywhere. Across Europe, a sense of unease hangs in the air, as if the continent itself is holding its breath, waiting for the first spark to ignite a wider conflagration. Dressler's Germany, rearmed and defiant, prepares to march into the Rhineland, openly challenging the old order. The world watches as German troops cross forbidden lines, their boots echoing through the streets, a bold statement that the treaties of yesterday no longer hold sway. The reoccupation is more than a military maneuver. It is a declaration that the balance of power in Europe is shifting once again. Britain and America remain distant, their leaders preoccupied with troubles at home, while France stands alone, its alliance is fragile and its people anxious. French soldiers man the border, uncertain if help will ever come. The sense of isolation grows as diplomatic cables go unanswered and promises of support ring hollow. The League of Nations is powerless. The world's democracies are divided and hesitant. Once envisioned as a guardian of peace, the League now seems little more than a debating club, unable to act decisively as crisis looms. Headlines scream of inaction, and the hopes placed in collective security begin to fade. Germany and the USSR eye Poland and the buffer states, each seeking expansion and influence. The fate of Eastern Europe hangs in the balance as both powers maneuver for advantage, their ambitions threatening to engulf the region in chaos. The borders of old are no longer secure, and the spectre of invasion looms ever closer. The ideological battle lines are drawn. Valkist nationalism, Soviet communism, and faltering Western democracies. Propaganda fills the streets, parades display military might, and politicians struggle to find answers. The world is not just divided by borders, but by visions of the future that seem irreconcilable. Churchill ends his novel with a warning: victory in one war can sow the seeds for the next. He urges his readers to remember that peace is never guaranteed and that complacency can be as dangerous as aggression. The lessons of history, he insists, must not be forgotten. The world of Führerreich stands on the brink of a second Weltkrieg, a dark mirror of human folly. Armies mobilize, civilians brace for the unknown, and the airwaves crackle with rumors of war. The sense of impending doom is palpable, as if history itself is repeating in a tragic cycle. In this imagined history, peace proves fragile, and the cycle of conflict threatens to begin anew. The world stands at a crossroads, its fate uncertain, as the lessons of the past echo into an uncertain future.